G'day Argy Bargy crew, hope you're having a fantastic day today and your family's happy and healthy. Alright, due to a lot of requests that I've been getting, I decided I'd put together this video. But before I do, I'd just like to say if you're interested in joining our VTC, the Argy Bargy Transport Virtual Trucking Company, there'll be a link down below in the description. And also if you're interested in joining the Discord, there's a great bunch of guys there. We're all there to help each other. There'll be a link in the description below as well. Please also, if you enjoy this video, give me the thumbs up and subscribe if you can, because it's free, you might as well. Alright, so like I say, due to a lot of requests that I've been getting about various settings in my games, people are always asking me what settings I use, I've decided to put this video together and combine all my settings. So it may turn out to be a long video, I'm not sure. It may not, we'll find out. So what we'll start off with first, of course, is the graphics. Now, I will go through the graphics in-game and then I'll show you some of the things that I adjust in the config file. And also, just as a heads up, this is for the update 1.53 of the game, of American Truck Simulator. Now, if you're coming to this video at a later time in the future, then this may not be exactly the right settings for your version. But as of version 1.53 of the game, these are the settings that I've found that are best for me. And again, if you find that some of these settings don't work for you, of course, tweak it until you find the setting that does. The whole idea is this is just basically to give you a starting point. And you've seen if you've watched my videos, you've seen how good my game runs. You've seen how good the graphics are. This will give you a starting point, and then you can adjust as you need. So these are not set in concrete. These are for you to start with and then adjust from there, or leave them if you're happy with it. Okay, so with the graphics, we'll go and have a look at that. So we'll go into options and the graphics. Now with graphics, I've basically got everything set on ultra. The only thing I would do different is if I was running triple screens, I would change the resolution to the resolution of the triple screens, and the refresh rate, I would change that to the refresh rate of the triple screens. And that's the only thing I would do different there if I was running triples, because a lot of people ask why I'm not running triples anymore. It's because of the way I record and stream. I need all the other screens to do the other bits and pieces. With that said, everything else, enabled vertical synchronization, frames per second limit is set to the same as the refresh rate of the monitor, and the frames per second limit in background is 30. Everything else is basically ultra. The only other thing that is adaptable is 400% scaling, SMAA and TAA anti-aliasing. TAA tuning is adaptive clarity, and TAA luma sharpening is 1. Everything else is set to ultra. Right, and you can stop the video and have a look at my settings here if you want. I'm not going to go through them individually because it will end up taking ages. One thing I will say is I used to have mirror quality and mirror resolution and mirror distance all set to low, because they used to make the game frame rate drop dramatically. But since all these updates that we've just recently had, I found that I can set them to higher and everything still runs extremely smooth. And again, this is for my system, so it may be different on yours, but this is a starting point. And if you find that it doesn't work, you can always tweak them to find the sweet spot for you. Okay, then in audio is we have 65% at the master volume. Of course, I have my voice meter input. Then all the other settings are basically 50%, except for a couple being the radio volume is adjustable, and at the moment it's 30%. Sometimes it might be higher. Voice navigation, I always have that at 85 or higher because it tends to get drowned out by everything else. CB radio, because I've been doing a lot of convoys just recently, I've turned them up to 100% because the CB radio is sometimes drowned out again by all the other volumes. But again, most of the volumes are at 50%. There's only a few that I've changed. Backup beeper I turn off because it's annoying as hell. Noise of the flowing air, I've turned that off, but I still get it anyway. But it's off. What else is there that I've turned off? Oh, override incoming Roger beep. Again, that's just a preference whether or not you want to do that. And then gameplay. Now this is where a few things I've changed, and the reason I've done this is because on this profile I've gone for ultra realism. So therefore I've set a few things differently than I do in my standard profiles. Now I don't know why they've been turned off. Oh, that's right, because I was doing some testing. Okay, in the ultra realism profile I have T turned on, traffic fences turned on, job length, again, that's at whatever you prefer. I put it at 95%. But then random road events I have at 28%. Detours, I normally have that at about, I think it was 12%. We'll put it at 10%. Again, I was doing some testing, so I played around with it. Rain probability of 10%. I don't find that I need to turn it up any further, and that's mainly because I don't want a lot of rain to happen, because I do a lot of videoing and I prefer not to have the rain while I'm videoing for YouTube. Time zones, full info. Show blockers, yes, of course. So if you turn that off, you end up running into an invisible wall. And then I have my H shifter, because I use a Logitech gear shifter. I don't use automatic, so I have that disabled, and I don't use sequential shifting, so that is unticked as well. Now this is where the main difference comes in from my other profiles. Again, this is because it's for the ultra realism. I have truck stability at 15%. A lot of people will say, ooh, that could cause problems, but it doesn't. Again, this is for my system. I run a Logitech G29 wheel with the pedals and the gear shifter, and I also have a 18 speed gear knob for high, low range and splitter. Cabin suspension I have at 10%. Suspension stiffness 20%. Drive shaft torque I found is best at 100%. Again, I've driven trucks in real life, and this is for me the closest you can get to the real feel. I found that by setting these settings at this, you get a better feedback through the steering wheel, and everything else feels more like it would in real life, as close as you can get to it in a game. Braking intensity, I normally float this between 65% and 150%, depending on the truck or the vehicle I'm driving. Now, just for clarification, in normal situations, it's around about 75-80% that I have it at. But again, if I'm running, for example, we run a vehicle that we use for pilot or for escort, the braking system on that is pathetic, so I put it up at 150% for that. Some of the trucks, I find that if I want it to get towards realism, have to be around about 100%. Some, again, like I say, around 65 or floating in between. So again, this is preferred setting that you want. I'm going to just set it at 80 for now, and then if I find it's no good, I can adjust that later. Air brakes simulation, I have that turned on. Realistic fuel consumption, that is also turned on, because again, this is going from ultra realism. Uneven surface simulation, I have that at 80%. Again, found that that is the best feedback that I get through the wheel. Cabin accessories physics, I have that turned on, because that means that anything that's in the cabin will move due to inertia, meaning that if you turn left, it will tilt. If you turn right, it will tilt. If you hit the brakes, it will tilt. You get the idea. It will move according to what's going on. Truck speed limiter, I don't have that turned on. I don't see the need for it. Adaptive cruise control, I completely disabled that because I found that it's a pain in the butt. But I do have smart cruise control set to a tolerance of 0. I have cruise control grid steps by 5 kilometers or 5 miles per hour. Lane assist mode, again, I have that disabled because as far as I'm concerned, it's not realistic and it doesn't work anyway properly. Blind spot sensor, I definitely have that turned off because it's annoying. Now, I know in real life you have them, but again, this is a preference of mine. I cannot stand that blind spot sensor. Every time you come up to a corner when you've got your indicator on, it starts going off and it just drives me crazy, so I turn that off. Rain sensor is on. That basically enables your automatic weeper screepers. Automatic engine electricity start, I don't have that because I don't want it to be automatic, because it's not automatic in real life. Automatic headlights, I do have that switched on. A lot of the trucks are coming with that now, the newer trucks. Same with automatic high beam, I have that switched on as well. Automatic blinker turned off. Again, most of your newer trucks do that. I know your older trucks, you actually have to turn it off yourself, but again, this is a preferred preference, so you can choose to do whichever you want. Automatic engine brake, that's switched off. Automatic retarder, that's on. Anti-lock brake system, I had that on again because most of the newer trucks come with that now. Traction control is on, again, same reason. Emergency brake system, have that disabled because that was using up air and you were ending up in the middle of a highway, just the brakes would all of a sudden slam on because you're too low on air. Automatic differential lock, again, that's off. Automatic drop of lift axles, have that on. And advanced trailer coupling, have that switched on because again, that's more like real life. Okay. Trailer stability, I've turned that down to 30%. Again, that's because this is for the more realistic profile. Invert mouse is off. Steering camera rotation is off. Steering camera rotation on reverse is off. Blinker camera rotation, that's off. Physical camera movement is on. And then factors, again, this is preferred, whatever you prefer to set it at. Auto camera centering delay is off. This is the new one. And camera movement speed instant is off. Now, these are off because I have a head tracker. If I didn't use head tracker, these would be enabled. I would have this on at 2 seconds and I would have this on at slow if I didn't have the head tracker. So that's just to let you know that that's why it's disabled, because I do have a head tracker. All right. So next is the interface. By the way, if you have any questions about any of the settings, leave them down in the comments below or go onto Discord, and I'm only too happy to answer your questions. All right, so in interface, this is sort of quality of life settings, really. Desktop backgrounds, you can select if you want. Random desktop backgrounds, I don't have that. UI fade out delay, I have that at 60 seconds. Route advisor speed limit, show the truck limit. Now you can choose here to hide it, show truck limit or car limit, whichever you prefer. I choose show truck limit, which is the default, I'm pretty sure. And that just basically shows what the speed limit is for trucks on the highway, and that way I don't break the speed limit. Route advisor speed warning, yes, have that ticked. Keep route advisor hidden, I have that ticked as well. And that's because, now let's have a look at it. I've never actually read what this does by keeping the route advisor hidden. Keeps the route advisor hidden even when notifications are received. When enabled, the route advisor will only be displayed when the player invokes it with the assigned key. Gotcha. Okay. So this prevents it from popping up whenever it feels like it. That explains it. I've never actually read that. So there you go. We've both learned something. Show navigation always. Navigation mode best. Now, a lot of people like to go with shortest or small roads. We tried small roads out for a while, and it ended up being a pain in the butt. So we go with best. And the reason the small roads was a pain in the butt, although it gives you a more varied route, I found that it was taking you along a highway and then telling you to go down the off-ramp and then back up the on-ramp. So it was taking the small roads, if you know what I mean. So you were diverting off the highway to only go straight back onto the highway. So no longer do I use that. Map alignment, North Lock, of course. Language is the English United States, again, your preferred language. And region presets, continental Europe. It should be USA. Okay. Don't know why that was changed. Localize city and state names, yes. Show secondary names and map, no, I don't do that. Never found a need for it. Display currency, US dollars. 24-hour clock, nope. I untick that because I prefer to have AM, PM. Length in units, of course, is miles, pounds, Fahrenheit. Default selected volume, distance. You get the idea. Others. Show cutscenes, yes. Heavy cargo warning screens, no. Noise the hell out of me, so I turn that off. Automatic parking dialog, no. Turn that off as well because I have random parking turned on. Therefore, it's just like in real life again. Random parking means that when you get to the drop-off, you will randomly be assigned a parking spot, which means it could be easy, it could be medium, or it could be hard. So you get it randomly, just like you would in real life. Because sometimes when you turn up to do a job and drop it off, it's really easy. Sometimes it's not that hard, and sometimes it's really hard. So by having it set at random parking, then I get more of a realistic outcome. Okay, in Convoy, I have enable name tags, which doesn't always work. Open chat with activate. Close chat, input after sending message, I have that unticked. Show chat on the navigation pane, have that ticked. Fade chat completely on the navigation pane, yes, after 5 seconds. And configure quick replies, I don't have any quick replies, so I've never done that. Now the keys and buttons, I'm not going to go through them all because there's way too many. I don't use any modifiers. I have 2 tablets that I use as one is a button box and one is a dashboard. Plus I have my steering wheel and I have my gear shift, and I also have a small keyboard with a rotor switch that I also use to program different things. Now I will slowly scroll down so that if you want to check what I've got in my settings, which may not relate to anything that you have, but anyway, I'll do it anyway. And if you want to, you can pause at any time, and that way you can have a look at what I've got set and what I've got it set to. But again, as you can see, there's quite a bit of stuff here that I don't have set and I never use, so it's no use setting it. But like I say, by scrolling down slowly like this, you can pause it at any time to check it out. And anything that's missing, oops, I shall get rid of, because that's from a button box that I used to have. So now you've seen all my button controls. You just have to pause it to check it out. Okay, so in controls, I have the first one is the wheel that I use, which is G29. Second one is the shifter that I use. Okay, and that's basically all that you need here. Any other buttons and devices that I use are hooked up directly through telemetry using SimDash for the 2 tablets, and of course the steering wheel's the number 1. So that's how I set those up. Very simple. Then transmission I have as H shifter because I use the H shifter pattern, and I have adaptive automatic disabled because I don't use automatic gearboxes, and smart sequential I have that disabled. Control type is wheel. Steering sensitivity is set to 1.10. Steering non-linearity is set to 0.12. And the steering animation range is set to 900. And that is because it is a G29 and its range is only 900. If you've got a Moza, whatever you call it, that will probably be 1,800. So you would set that to that. Again, this is for my system and my setup, and again, These are a starting point, and you can, at any time you want, tweak them to suit yourself. Okay, and this is where the magic happens with force feedback of the steering wheel. Of course, you have force feed set to on. You have your overall gain set to whatever you prefer. I prefer 140% because I prefer a slightly heavier wheel, so I can feel what's going on through the wheel. Centering at high speed. Now, this one's very important. If you've got a situation where, and if you look at the wheel cam here, if you look at the wheel cam, if you've got a situation where your wheel is doing this at when you're driving along a straight line, and it shouldn't be, by turning this down to about 50 or a little bit below, it should get rid of that. If you're getting this happening in a straight line. If you're turning a corner, it doesn't normally happen. But if you're in a straight line, sometimes you'll get a vehicle that does this. And I found it normally happens with cab overs. For example, the K200, the K100E, and some other of the cars that you might be driving, like an F-150 that I use as a pilot vehicle, it tends to do that a little bit. So by turning it down to around about 45%, I found that it gets rid of that, but it does make the steering a little bit lighter. So if you go too far down, it'll feel as though you've got no force feedback. But in normal circumstances, I have that up around about 90%. But again, if I find that I get this, when I'm in a straight line, I'll turn it down to 50%. I don't touch centering at low speed, I leave that at 50. Internal friction, I leave that at 50. Engine resonance, I have that basically turned off because I find it annoying. I don't like the wobbles and vibrations that you get just while you're sitting there. A lot of people love it. I love to feel the vibration of the engine, but I don't. It drives me crazy, so I turn it off. Terrain surface, I have it 12%. Again, my preference, I prefer it there. Bumps, I have it 45%. So I like to feel if there's any undulations or differences in the road surface. I like to be able to feel them. In fact, I might turn that up to 50%, which just recently I've felt that it's not as good. Collisions, I have that at 25%. Gearbox grind, I have that at 10. I found that you have it at any higher, it gets too noisy because the vibration actually comes through your steering wheel when it's grinding, and the G29 is quite noisy, but you may find that your steering wheel isn't as noisy, so therefore you might want to turn that up. But because mine's quite noisy, I turn it down to 10. I can't afford a Mozza, so therefore I have to stick with what I've got. Understeer slip, I have at 50%, and that I found is perfect the way it is. Assisted steering, I have that at 50% because it was default, but I don't use lane assist, so it's really irrelevant to me. These three settings here are for if you have the extra force feedback, the G-force or something like that, but my wheel doesn't have it, so they're left grayed out. Okay, here is the steering wheel. As you can see, it works perfectly, but I also have it at 0 dead zone. I can't stand having a dead zone in the steering wheel because you don't have a dead zone in real life unless there's something wrong with your steering. So I have that at 0, I have it centered, and then you go into your accelerator. And again, I do have a dead zone on this because I found at 20%, it gives you a better feel as a real accelerator. If you have it at nothing, it feels like it's full on or full off. But by having it 20%, it feels more like a real accelerator. And I have that inverted because we're using the G29 or Logitech pedals, and they need to be inverted, or at least they do in my situation. And again, these are your preference, but again, they're a starting point for you. Then we have the brake. I have that at 15%, so that you have a little bit of a dead zone, and then you've got to really hammer it at the end to get the full 100%. And again, that's inverted. Now the clutch is a different kettle of fish. You have two settings for the clutch. You have your dead zone, which I set at 50%. People may think that's a really high dead zone, but wait for it. Then I have the clutch range at 50%. And the reason I've done that is because of all the testing I've done, and believe me, I've done a lot over the years. I've found that this gives you the best clutch feel, because you can actually slip the clutch a little bit, and it feels more like a real clutch by having, or at least again in my situation it does, and you can adjust this according to your own. I used to have this up at around about, I think it was 90 to 100%, and this was down at 13%. But then when I did a lot of testing recently with the updates and whatnot, I found that 50 and 50 gives me the best feel for the clutch in this version of the game, 1.53. And it just, like I say, it feels like a real clutch. And then look up and look down axis, don't worry about that, because I've got that set for buttons and whatnot. Now in the shifter layout is Eaton Fuller 18 speed. You've got a choice here of all these ones. I always or mostly use 18 speed. Sometimes I use 15s and 13s, but in most situations I'm using 18, so I leave it at that. And I've also got this shifter knob here that I use for range splitting, etc. And therefore I have it at 18 speed so that I can properly use this. I have the advanced shifter layout, behavior. Then I have shifter fast split for clutch or throttle. Now I found that by putting that on, I can, because with my clutch, that's what I meant to say back up here, with my clutch, fact is that I don't use the clutch very often. The only time I use the clutch in most situations, unless I'm driving a car in ATS, I won't use the clutch unless I'm in a car. In a car I use the clutch all the time, but in the trucks I use the clutch only when I'm taking off. So when I'm taking off, I'll put it in the first gear by putting the first or low, depending on what the load is. I'll push the clutch in to get it into gear, and then once I'm off and running, the only other time I'll do it is if I'm floating from first to third. But even then, after that, I never use the clutch. I just gear into gear using the revs to mesh the gears, if you know what I mean. So once I'm in third, no more clutch. Into fourth, split, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. You get the idea. So just so you understand that the clutch I only use when I'm taking off, basically. And sometimes when I'm gearing down, I will use it if I have to be quick, gear down if it's an emergency. But I've found that by using clutch or throttle, it works best with the Logitech pedals. If I used only throttle, it doesn't work properly. So I've got to use clutch or throttle to get it to work properly. Then here, for some reason on this profile, this is showing it's not available, but that is my joy button 18. And it's 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. And then the toggle here is for the splitters. And down here, I have this button, which is for your toggle 1. So if you're setting up a shifter like this, and then over here I have, start again. Over here I have this toggle 1 is button 0. Gets a bit confusing. And then here I have toggle 2 is button 1. All right, so that's for the splitter and the range. And then on top you have a button here, which I use, and you'll notice in the keys and buttons, if you went through them and then paused, you'll notice that this button is used for my jake brake. It toggles the jake brake on or off. This makes it easier to get to. All right, so that's the gear shift layout. And of course you have shifter toggles use switch mode, so that they're switching. All right. Automatic gearbox drive and automatic gearbox reverse I have set to the joy button 5 and joy button 15, but I never use it. Just letting you know. Cursor speed 500 times. The only reason that's there is because that was the default setting, and I've always left it as it is. Eye tracking I don't have on because I use a head tracker that is a free piece of software, and my normal webcam that I use, I don't need to pay for anything to use it. And if you're interested in that, I have a video to show you how to set that up. Color feedback, excuse me. Color feedback, I have that switched on. Again, that's only because it's default. I've never really known what it does. It tells you here, enables dynamic RGB feedback on compatible devices. But again, I've only left that like that because that's what the default was. Online is just for where you're connecting to World of Trucks, and it just tells you what you can do here, what you're going to get, and you can tick or untick whatever you need. Accessibility, this is just your basic camera stuff and steering stuff. Invert mouse, I have that unticked. Steering camera rotation, I have that unticked. So therefore the steering camera rotation factor is not important. Steering camera rotation on reverse, I have that disabled. Blinker camera rotation, I have that. So I basically have everything disabled in the camera except for physical camera movement because I use the head tracker. So everything's disabled. If I didn't have head tracker, I would have this new system here. I would have that enabled because that is your auto camera centering delay. Now, if I had this enabled, I would have this at 2 seconds, and then I would have this at slow. All right, that's what I would have that because I've tested it, and I found that that to me is the best setting. But again, your preference, your choice. Okay, so that's the settings that I have for my ultra realistic setup. Now I will show you the settings, which there are only a few different bits that I change for my standard setup. Okay, in my standard setup, the basic things that I have different to my ultra realistic are these settings here. The truck stability is right up at 90%. Cabin suspension stiffness 65. Suspension stiffness is 65. Drive shaft torque is down 20%. And braking intensity is 85%. That's the main difference that I change in gameplay. I don't think there's anything else that I can... trailer stability I have up at 90% as opposed to 30%. Okay, so that's what I changed there. So yeah, so that's it. It's basically just the gameplay settings that I change, these ones here. So if you have a look at these settings compared to my ultra realistic settings, you'll see the difference, and you can go back in the video and see what I've got different here and with the trailer here, and that's it. So that's the settings in game. Now we'll have a look at what I change in the config. Okay, so here we are inside the Documents American Truck Simulator file, and we're looking for the config. As you can see, I've got some backups here. Whenever you're changing anything in a configuration file or any other file for that matter, you should always make a backup just in case something goes wrong, and then you can revert back to the default one, and it should be fine. So anyway, so let's go into the config file. Now, the changes that I make are mainly just graphical, the graphics in the game and performance. So the first thing that we're looking for is, paste this in here, and I'll leave all these codes or text for you in the description. The first one we're going to find is page buffer size, and we change that from a 10 to anything between 10 and 250. I've got mine set up to 250 because I find that that's the best setting for me. But what you should do is try it at increments of say 20. So go from 10 to 20 to 40, etc., until you get to a sweet spot and you find the best setting for you that gives you the best buffer size. I've gone to 250 because through experimenting I found that 250 is the best for my system, and that increases the size of your computer's buffer that stores the information of the game, if you know what I mean. Okay, then we're going to look for the next one, which is the light span factor, and I'll paste this in here. And in light span factor, I apologize, it should change it from a 1 to to a 3. And what that does is it increases the radius of your light at night. So in other words, your street lights, etc., that cast a light down onto the ground, it increases the radius from a small radius to a slightly larger one to make it look more realistic and makes the game more immersive. Again, if you don't want it changed, don't change it, but if you do, play around with it. I adjusted mine to 3 and was happy with that. Then the next setting is the light distance factor, and I changed that from 1 to a 4. And what that does is it makes lights or street lights visible at greater distances. So a lot of people think, well, okay, that's going to increase the or decrease the performance of the game because you're putting extra load on it. It doesn't. It's just loading the lights quicker so that you see them at a greater distance, rather than driving down a road and the lights pop on as you get closer to them. They'll be already on, so that they're not looking as if they're going click, 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 click as you drive along, if you know what I mean. Again, if you're not happy with that, adjust it to whatever you're happy with. These are all suggested settings, and it's up to you to choose which one you want to go with. Then the next one is your reflection, or the reflection scale, and this increases the shininess, is probably the easiest way to say it, of your paintwork and chrome on your trucks. And I've changed mine from a 1 to a 3. And again, I find that setting for me is all I need, and it makes the paint and the chrome look really nice. And then the next one is the window length. And the window length, basically, don't know how to explain this one. You'd be probably better off looking it up on the internet as to what this does, because I found out about this by doing a search of it on the internet and finding a post in one of the forums about it, and the guy there explains it a lot better than I could. And through his suggestion, mine was set at, I think it was 20 when I first started, and then I changed it to 240. And I find that that's the best setting for mine. But again, I'll leave all these codes, all these settings in the description below, so that you can take a look at them, copy and paste them in to find them, and change them for yourself. And once you've done that, you simply go up to File and click Save, and you're done. And that's it. So hopefully this will help you with your settings. If you've got any questions, please ask them in the comments below or in Discord, and I'll be happy to answer them, not a problem. Also, if you enjoyed the video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. It helps me out tremendously. It's free, so you might as well. And if you did enjoy it, share it with a friend if you know someone who might benefit from it. And also, hopefully, we'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.